I'm Judy Nadler, Senior Fellow in Government Ethics at the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University, and I'm joined today by Dr. Frank Benest. Frank is a senior advisor to the International City and County Management Association, also known as the ICMA. And he has spent his professional life as a city manager and has been honored by ICMA with their Distinguished Service Award, which really is the highest honor one can get from your peers. Prior to his retirement in 2008, he was...
You don't retire, you move on into an encore.
Okay.
So, retire means to withdraw. I mean, that's not part of our DNA.
Dr. Benest has begun an encore career following his 2008 departure from the city of Palo Alto, California. And I want to thank you for joining us today, Frank.
I'm glad to be here.
Before we start talking about the ethical challenges that are inherent in the relationships between elected officials, city council members,
Right.
and mayors, and their managers, could you first tell us about the two forms of local government so that we understand how the way the government is formed might have an impact on the relationship?
Right. The ethical considerations of the relationship are pretty much tied to the form, as you suggest. There is, in large cities, particularly in the Midwest and in the East, you have a strong mayor who serves as the executive, and then you have council people who are the legislators. Now, the council manager form, which is the form that most governments in California have, most governments across the country have, grew out of the progressive era in the 1920s, where the elected officials could give patronage. There was a lot of corruption. To the victor goes the spoils. That was sort of the theme. And so through the progressive era, they created the council manager form, and they separated out the executive function from the legislative function. So the city manager is the chief executive, oversees the organization, reports to the council, and the council serves as the legislative body, making policy and giving direction.
Okay. So one of the things that probably has been a consideration lately in the deliberations at every council meeting is the matter of the budget.
Right.
We know there are shrinking resources and greater demands. So what are the kinds of ethical challenges that you see with the downturn in the economy? How do those come up for locally elected officials and their managers?
Well, first of all, we have set up a whole system of controls for going out to bid, going to the lower bidder, contracting, and that takes time, and it also takes money, it takes resources. And so with less money, there are criticisms that we need to streamline all those processes. So there's some tension there between getting it done faster and cheaper with making sure that it's an ethical, equitable process. That's one problem, one issue. The other one is that in the good days, when the economy was doing well and we had resources, because our budgets are tied to economic transactions in the economy, we had resources. And so when an elected official ran on a certain kind of theme or had some projects that he or she wanted, would get elected, and we had money, and we could fund a whole variety. And there was, in fact, a lot of mission creep, truth be told. Now, we don't have those resources. In fact, we're cutting back on all our resources. So first of all, it's forcing councils to set some priorities. Very difficult, because they all have different constituencies and different views of the world, generally. And then it puts a lot of strain on the council-manager relationship, because the manager has to say, we don't have money to fund your projects. We're just barely trying to maintain our core services, our core businesses. That puts a lot of strain on the relationship.
How does the manager deal with the public when the council member, perhaps in an election, has promised a new soccer park or some other project that you know the city cannot afford, but that person's made a political promise? Right.
It becomes a big problem if the council member comes to the manager and say, okay, get it done. particularly when there's very few resources. So therefore, the manager typically has to say, if it becomes a priority of the council, I work for the whole council, our organization reports to the whole council. So therefore, I cannot get this thing done for you, but the council could decide. Of course, then there's competing priorities. And so the manager could be looked, if it's not done with some finesse, the manager could be seen as a roadblock, and is often in fact seen as a roadblock. You're not helping me achieve my agenda. Often couched as the community agenda. Well, the community has a lot of agendas. Puts a lot of strain on the relationship.
Speaking of relationships, I'm been very interested in discussion recently about the role of social media in public affairs.
Yes.
And in fact, many cities have Facebook sites, they
Twitter.
tweet, they do all sorts of things.
Right.
What do you see as some of the inherent challenges with that type of communication and how it might impact the relationships of these key players, the elected officials and the administrators?
Right. Well, first of all, there's obviously, if we're going to there's some pluses. If we're going to reach the newer generation in our communities, which we have to, and engage in government, obviously we have to use some of these social media platforms. It certainly helps us in terms of communicating. I mean, we have to look at all kinds of media to do that. Having said that, you know, to date, I am not convinced it really helps us solve problems, which is the bottom line, together. The big problems of the day, there are no easy answers. There are no right and wrong answers. So we have to come together. A government has to authentically engage people, and then we have to struggle to come up with solutions that are acceptable. Now, I find that a lot of times over social media, there's a lot of false information, bad information, biased information, and then it goes viral. And it's very hard for the government agency to deal with that. And people aren't coming to council meetings. They're on the social media, talking back and forth to each other. So it's a big challenge. And then to really deal with some of the big challenges of the day, you have to bring people together. And so people have to have a chance to hear some information, hopefully fairly objective information, which the government can provide. Then we have to have the opportunity for people to ask questions. Then they can hear different perspectives, oh my God, different perspectives. And then they can struggle with the solution with government. So there's still a long ways to go.
Great. Well, thank you so much for
Sure.
joining us.
Thank you.
And if you'd like more information, the International City City and County Management Association, ICMA, has an excellent website. And of course, you're always welcome to visit us at the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics.